Dear Dr. Charryse, my opportunity to take a lot of the questions that you all try to slip in my DMs and do something constructive.
Dear Dr. Charryse, are y'all ready for this?
The goal is for us to have honest, courageous conversations, pretty much with no topic off the table.
Let's go.
One element of neurobiological health that is often overlooked from conversation is financial health. If you have struggled with your finances or currently struggle with your financial health, there's a high chance that it's also impacting what you believe about yourself, your relationships, and your mental health as a whole. It's an important conversation, so let's get into it. Financial stress is a real thing. And let's be honest, there really aren't any good opportunities or natural opportunities to discuss it. It's often something that creates a lot of shame for individuals who are struggling. I want you to take any shame that you have around where you are financially and put it on pause and just open your mind and your heart up to this conversation, see what you can glean, see what kind of insight or aha moments come up for you. But most importantly, remind yourself that growth and shame cannot coexist well. So in order for you to heal and recover and move forward in this area, it means that you take the shame that maybe you felt for years and decide you aren't going to deal with it any longer. The first thing that I want to talk about is the concept of financial trauma. That might be something that you've never heard of before. When we think about financial trauma, I want you to think of scarcity. I want you to take a moment and think about how money played a role in your life growing up. Did you have a lot? Did your family members hold great pride around it, but not necessarily teach you what to do with it? Were you in a situation where you feel like, well, we never really had much, and that was a trauma in of its own? I remember even in my own life thinking that once I had a certain amount of money, then everything would be great. Of course, I was wrong. It doesn't matter how much money you have if you don't know how to manage the money that you have, and if you don't work on healing your relationship with money. Because the same way that you view having a little bit of money and holding on to it or mindlessly spending it will also show up when you get more. It shows up in our little small habits that we overlook and we don't pay attention to. So I have some notes here that I wrote down because I don't want to miss giving you anything that's impactful. I'm also going to follow up this podcast with an article on brainsmagazine.com, and the brains is BRAINZ. And it'll just provide you with a quick resource and a recap of what I'm sharing today in case you don't have multiple opportunities to replay. But of course, come back as much as you want to. So number one, the impact of financial stress on mental health. Anxiety and depression is often hand in hand with financial stress. And the hard part about it is it's a quiet, sometimes loud, but often a quiet anxiety in the sense of it's not something that you want to show other people. It can even be a dynamic where your anxiety around money makes you shun away from opportunities, from socializing. You also may have a significant amount of depression because you're watching all of this debt continue to incur. Now, there are different sides to the dynamic, and I want to break that down for a moment as we go through anxiety and depression. For example, you might be in a situation where you feel anxious and depressed or back and forth around money, but part of that is you've never had much. So you didn't come into a relationship with money having enough to manage it well, and there's an awful feeling that coexists with financial stress when you constantly feel like you're behind the eight ball We're also, if we're honest, living in a situation in a season where the cost of living is higher than it's ever been before. So what we're seeing in the world of finances and in the world of mental health is people who feel like I'm making more than I've ever made, but also having to spend more than I've ever spent in order to survive, in order to help children, in order to help your spouse or your extended family. The list could go on and on. So know that the anxiety and the sadness, even if you kind of go back and forth, it makes complete sense, but there is hope. And that hope, going back to where we started, is take the shame that you've experienced and that you may currently be sitting in right now and just allow it to quiet down. Number two, we often find that when we're struggling with our finances, we make poor decisions. We might be in situations where we're not able to make the kind of decisions that we need to make. And as a result of that, our decisions are impulsive. Here's why that happens. If we go back to the brain and how the brain registers decision making, healthy decision making happens at the prefrontal cortex in that executive functioning area of the brain. If you are anxious, if you are sad and overwhelmed, if you feel hopeless around money, then you get stuck in the midbrain, then your limbic system in the back of the brain, that lizard brain area, is constantly feeling like it's in a struggle. And when that struggle happens, what you'll find is you're looking for dopamine. So if we connect that concept around decision making, dopamine, and finances, this means you may not be making big, huge purchases, but little, small purchases that add up to a significant amount of money. Let's go in. You can decide if you want to do this or not. You may not want to, but if you do, I promise it's going to be insightful. I want you to take some time after you finish listening to this and go to your bank account. And then I want you to look for the last 30 days at how you've spent your money. But in particular, I want you to look at small incidental purchases that you've made. Starbucks, convenience store, fast food, DoorDash. It hurts my heart to say this. Amazon, things that aren't hundreds of dollars all at once, but it could be $5 here, $10 here, $25 there. And when you add it up, see what the total is. Remember, the goal isn't shame. The goal is awareness. And that exercise is going to help you see, wow, what is the true health of my decisions? Because what happens in the moment of those purchases is that you are looking for something to lift your mood, to get you out of that anxiety and depression, to help make you feel better. And so you want to bring something good in. There's a package that's coming. There's something to look forward to. Oh, we really needed this, even though you probably didn't. We rationalize those choices and decisions. That same amount of money could have gone towards your debt ratio. And in order to heal our relationship with food, part of that, not food, although we'll get there, in order to heal our relationship with money, part of that is we have to recognize how there is an interplay between all of these things. It does bring me to number 3, which is financial stress can impact your relationship with food. You may find that you are eating to manage your stress. It has been something that I have heard multiple times, whether I'm working with someone on a personal level or even professional corporations, where they recognize, well, food is the way that we try to make everyone feel better when they're stressed. Food is the way that if we can't give an organization or our employees a raise, we bring in food a couple of different times to help soothe them and make them feel good. But at the end of the day, buying excessive food in order to manage our financial stress and the emotions that go along with it is not an answer. It's not a solve. And typically it then creates another dynamic that you're trying to manage because it's hard to stop utilizing that emotional eating as a means of self-soothing. So we said 1, anxiety and depression, 2, poor decision making, 3, your relationship with food, 4, financial stress can create physical health issues. It can manifest into problems such as headaches, digestive issues, insomnia, and it even can disrupt your mind to body connection. Keep in mind, especially if you have been with me for a while or kind of worked with me in different scenarios, that there's always this bi-directional conversation that's happening between your brain and your gut. Those areas of your body, along with your soma, your nervous system, are constantly talking all the time. So financial stress isn't something that we walk around wearing on a t-shirt, but it's always there. It's always something that we're thinking about. As a result of that, it can rise or heighten our cortisol. And when our cortisol is heightened, our stress levels are going to be through the roof, and we can stay in fight or flight. And that part of our nervous system being in fight and flight also creates inflammation, and 60% of the physical issues that we have stem from some level of inflammation. I want you to take that in. Let's track this for a moment. Money is scarce. As a result of not having the amount of money that you like to have, you then decide one way to kind of keep yourself up or to have a treat to look forward to is little small purchases at the store. A little bit of alcohol here, few cigars there, eating out a little bit here, a few trips down the candy aisle here, taking in those things and telling yourself, I work hard, I deserve this. The issue isn't about not deserving it. It's about recognizing where your financial stress and not addressing it may be putting you in a cycle of issues that's impacting significant areas of your life, and the root of the problem hasn't been addressed yet. You may also find that financial stress creates relationship strain. I've worked with many couples over time who have felt like their finances were a constant source of contention. If there's any level of imbalance around who is bringing in the amount of finances, who's overseeing the finances, or there can even be the part of you that feels like you cannot be the kind of partner that you desire because you don't have a certain level of finances in order to spend time with someone or to do the kinds of things that you want. And that cues back to that shame and that low, sometimes emotional health and self-worth when we believe that we cannot be seen and operate in life the way we'd like to. Also, we see a decrease in self-esteem. And that goes hand in hand with what I just said. It's very difficult to feel like we can't easily afford the things that we need. Tell me this, just between you and I. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you had to choose? Maybe you had to choose which bill to pay. Maybe you had to choose between how much of a bill to pay so that you would have enough to eat or enough gas in your tank. I bring out those things again, not to create shame, but just to normalize that life can be hard and life can be difficult. And those moments, especially if they're recurring, can be significantly challenging to overcome. They can create a lot of frustration and really tear down how you may esteem yourself. But I want you to hear it right now from the sound of my voice. You are not your finances. Your finances play an important role in your life. We live in a world that operates off of economics. So we do need them, and we need to be as smart as we possibly can around how we use our money. But again, you are not your finances. One thing I will also say is that regardless of what you've been taught, the financial traumas that you've experienced, you do have the ability to break the cycle. There's another side of financial trauma that I want to bring in for just a moment. Some individuals grew up in very scarce situations around money. So then as a result of that, as they get older and they move into their vocational life, they become obsessed with money and with work. They can't ever have enough. They need a significant amount of money in their savings in order to feel a sense of safety and security. So in one small way, that's helpful because you're working to break a cycle by making sure that you're on top of things, you're increasing your net worth, and making sure that you're prepared for emergencies. But there's a caveat. If you are so focused on working and making money that you will also not allow yourself permission to spend it on the things that you enjoy and to take breaks and to allow the people that you love to also appropriately engage in enjoying what you've worked for, then that same level of money can become a trap. It can become a chokehold. If you're constantly working and striving more than you need to be because you really do have enough, you are well prepared for the rainy day, but there's this part of you that is constantly in fear that in any given moment, it could all go away, then you too are a victim of financial trauma. It's just manifesting in a different way, so it can be overlooked. Semi-funny story. Tell me if you see yourself in this story. I often find that people that I sometimes know or people that I work with or we're in conversation who go through storms, literal rainstorms, and the light shuts off. There's two responses. One individual goes, oh my goodness, was there an accident? Did something happen? Oh, the power's out. My individuals who've grown up in really tough situations with their finances, even if they know it's not true, for a moment, they feel this adrenaline rush and then they literally stop and ask themselves, did I pay the light bill? Because there's some level of trauma that they've experienced before around maybe coming home and not having the lights on or things getting cut off. You don't have to out yourself in this moment in the comments, but I just want you to consider when something happens like that, do you find that there is an autonomic reaction around something that you didn't do or something that could have gone wrong that you're a part of versus recognizing, no, it's just a natural dynamic of a really bad storm. One more area that I want to cover around the impact of financial stress is social withdrawal. Let's be honest, sometimes there are moments where you actually just can't afford to do the things that the people in your life want to do. But when that happens on a regular basis, that's really hard and could potentially pull you away from relationships that you love because you can't afford to go out. You can't afford to go to parties that they may be inviting you to. And this doesn't mean that you need enough to do those kinds of things every day or every week. But at certain points in your life, whether you're a young adult, in your mid-30s and above, those things matter. You can only say no so many times before people stop asking. And a lot of us are not comfortable enough to say, hey, I can't afford the kinds of things that you want to do. I've even seen this happen and really hurt a lot of friendships when people are planning trips together. You have the one person on the trip who's like, I'm all in. You tell me I'm saving up for it. I want to do all the things. And then you have other people who feel like, okay, I have enough to get to the trip, but when we're there, I really need to manage and tightly budget things. There's nothing wrong with either of those dispositions, but when they come together without a true understanding of one another, it can be extremely challenging. So as you're going through, even in your own life and even in your own social circles, and you're planning things, the next time you think, oh my goodness, that person is being so cheap, I encourage you to stop and pause and remind yourself that you never know what someone else is experiencing. And we could all do something super powerful. We can make sure that as we work to engage with other individuals, that we take the time to make sure that when we plan something, it's as accessible as possible to anyone that we want to come. Looking at the price points, looking at how much notice we've given them, looking at any ways that we can find ways to spend time with the people that we care for, but letting them know it's more about being with them than their level of financial wealth. What would you add to the list? There may be things that you also recognize in your own life around, well, what do you do? Because you see how financial stress is impacting you in multiple ways. In general, it can have a huge impact on your overall well-being, but working to become aware of how you're spending your money through the exercise that I gave earlier, thinking through your choices and your decisions and how they impact your long-term financial needs, sitting down and educating yourself or having conversations with someone that you trust and respect in the area of finances is another way that you can support yourself. And I will also add, have a weekly money ritual. This can be really challenging if we don't have a good relationship with money, because in those moments, we don't want to face what already feels difficult. But we repeat, right, what we don't repair. And if we're unwilling to give it a hard look on a consistent basis, then the situation is what creates that level of shame, the situation between procrastinating, ignoring, and avoiding everything that we need in order to heal this area and to move forward. For more information on what you can do, in addition to what I've already shared here, again, remember to check out that article in Brainz, Brainz. Look down in the show notes if you are looking at this through YouTube or Spotify, or if you're even listening to it through iTunes or Google Play or all the places, check out the show notes because it's going to give you a wealth of information around how we can stay connected and various resources that I have in place to support you. One of the things that I even intentionally do myself is I make sure that there are different ways from free to paid that we can be in connection with one another, because I always want to make sure that your finances are not a barrier to you having what you need. I said it once and I want to say it again. You are not your finances. Your finances are important. They are a valuable part of your mental health and your emotional well-being. And if you do the work, you can work your way through, because knowledge is not power without application. Continue to listen to this as much as you need. Think about the things at the end that I mentioned. And as you go through and you take time to take inventory around how you're spending your money, don't view it through the lens of shame. See it as a launching point. See it as a new opportunity for you to reset and restore your relationship with your finances. I always love our time, and I'm so grateful that you choose to come and be here. I look forward to being with you soon. Until we meet again, do the work.